A very good evening all. I'm Diti Lama with the Wednesday night edition of South Asian News. Welcome to Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community. We are coming to you from our studio in New York City. Here's what's happening tonight in the coronavirus pandemic. Globally, we are looking at more than 973,000 deaths related to the novel virus and 31.7 million cases. The United States has surpassed a sobering number of 200,000 deaths with at least 6.9 million COVID-19 cases. This is happening while many European governments have started to impose strict measures and have begun weighing further lockdowns in order to curb the incoming second surge of coronavirus in the continent. Experts are saying that indoor winter gatherings could be extremely dangerous if not handled correctly. Today, during a Senate hearing, top U.S. health officials said that he expects COVID-19 vaccinations to take place over many months and that most could be vaccinated by July of 2021. U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention head Dr. Robert Redfield said that he expects there to be about 700 million doses of the vaccine by late March or April, enough for 350 million people. Several trials continue to go on with several companies in the late-stage trials, including Pfizer Inc., Moderna Inc., and Johnson & Johnson. Health experts also told the Senate that regulatory agencies will not cut corners when it comes to the safety of this vaccine. Here in New York City, several neighborhoods have seen an uptick in COVID-19 cases that is causing great concerns for city officials. Remember, the city was once the epicenter, so we hope that residents of the city continue to take all necessary precautions. And late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is lying in repose at the Supreme Court today and tomorrow, with Americans paying their respects to the second woman to serve nation's highest court and a huge advocate for women's rights. Our prayers for the family and friends of Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg. With that, tonight's episode highlights much on COVID-19 relief along with South Asian artists. Here are the headlines. Akshaya raises $500,000 at Families for Change virtual gala, Florida. Senator Luis Sepúlveda addresses systemic racism, District 32nd, New York State Senate. Christopher Nolan's Tenet hits more than 250 million worldwide, featuring British actor Himesh Patel. It's time for a short break on Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. I'm Aditi Lama and this is Vision of Asia, Wednesday night episode of South Asian News. Let's take a look at the non-profit role that is tirelessly working to uplift and enable underserved and vulnerable communities while also providing relief during this pandemic. Akshaya Foundation, India's largest NGO school midday meal program, feeds more than 1.8 million children across more than 19,000 schools in India, with a vision that no child in India shall be deprived of education because of hunger. The foundation recently held a virtual gala themed Families for Change and raised over $500,000. Attended by medical professionals, businesses, philanthropic leaders, and Bollywood actress Raveena Tandon as the keynote, the gala's fundraised money will provide for COVID-19 relief to migrant workers, an ongoing effort of Akshaya Foundation, which includes cooked meals, ration boxes, and happiness kits with many educational supplies and more. Organized by Akshaya Foundation's Florida chapter, here is a segment of the conversation with actress and icon Raveena Tandon on finding happiness and peace within yourself.
We were a film family, but so to speak, very, very non-filmy. We were not allowed to go on my dad's shootings except when it was vacation time. So either we'd all take off to Ooty or to Kashmir where my dad would be shooting, and that's the only time when I visited the sets. We had everyone coming over. Chintu ji was a dear friend. Amit ji, Jaya ji, they used to come home. Moshmi ji, Neetu ji, Hari uncle used to come and stay with us. In fact, Sanjeev Kumar ji, when he had his heart attack, my mom used to look after him. She was like a sister to him. And I remember those growing up days where Hari uncle used to be staying with us, and every time he'd go into the bathroom and smoke up, and my mom would be firing him because he was not allowed to smoke anymore. So yeah, those were growing up days. School time, it was tough because I think in those days Hindi films was not cool. So I remember most of my friends who were from Bandra or from South Bombay, they would look down upon Hindi films and Hindi music. So in school, yes, it was tough. because they would mostly alienate you. Oh my God, her dad's from the Hindi movies. Oh my God, And if I were to say, yes, so what did you do over the weekend? And I would say, oh, Amit uncle came over for dinner. Or they would say, oh, do you know all these people? And I'd say, yeah, they just came over for dinner day for yesterday. And they would be like, oh, stop showing off. So it was a catch-22 situation. So it was, I think it's very, very difficult for film kids because the pressure is so much on them. We are from the industry, and so to speak, I think it is it's always been an ancient tradition that most of the children take up what their parents do, whether it is a ration ki dukan, or it is an Ambani, or it is anywhere in the world. It's mostly children follow in their parents' footsteps. But I think for our film kids, our industry kids, life is very, very tough. I think a lot of people face insecurities and jealousies, and the pressure is too much on them to either prove or to doubly prove what they have to do, or it's very difficult for them even to get into their parents' professions these days. I actually did not intend to join the films. I've always said that I'm in this industry by default, because I never grew up thinking, oh, I'm going to grow up and become an actress. Never so. I, in fact, wanted to join the IPS, the Indian Police Force, the Indian Police Services. And I was very, very inspired by Kiran Bedi ji. She was my idol. And since, we were young, we used to read in the newspapers how she used to round up these gundas and lock them up. And, and it was so inspiring. And she was like a tigress. And that is what I wanted to become, actually, after I passed, graduated or gave my 12th. But unfortunately, that did not happen. I only ended up wearing the uniform in my movies.
क्या बात है? डीआईजी साहब है? अरे, वो रात के 2-3 बजे से पहले घर कहाँ आते हैं? Search the house.
Yes, madam.
विजया, क्या हुआ? Arrest warrant. Mr. Jagdish Chaudhary की गिरफ्तारी का.
I think humans waste a lot of time in thinking ऐसा नहीं हुआ होता तो ऐसा होता, ऐसा नहीं होता तो ऐसा होता. I think they waste a lot of time in regret. I believe one should never, never, ever regret whatever happens to them in their life, because I think everyone's life has a certain destiny, a certain path to follow. And depends on what situation you're in. I'm in a happy place. I'm content with my life. My life has exactly panned out the way I wanted. Yes, there are hiccups, and yes, there are struggles. Everyone's life has struggles, and everyone has a story to tell. But that is what life is all about. But when I look at my kids, and I look at my parents, and I look at my husband, and I look at my family around me, my friends around me, I look at my home, I look at my cats and my dogs and all my other animals, and I thank God for every breath that He's giving me, that I can do or I can be, and the way I am with all of them and the way they are with me. So I'm content in my heart.
When I was 21, I didn't even know myself, let alone take responsibility for two grown children. And at 21, you adopted two girls, Pooja and Chaya, who were 11 and 8, and you took responsibility for them. Tell us, how did that come about, and what gave you that power to just do that?
The parents were no more, and wherever the girls were, I thought that they were not being brought up the way that they should have been. I believe that they should have had a better life. And my mom and me, my mom actually has been working for NGOs since I was a child, and I always used to follow her, to orphanages, to other places, and help her out. Even when I was young, since I was in the 8th or 9th standard, I've always been with her, and I've been doing working with her. So I think this entire trait comes from her. And when I saw these girls, and I told my mom and my dad, I said, we do charity all over the place. We are helping so many people. This is something that is close to home. We are seeing this happen, whatever's happening to these two young girls. I said, let's just, at that time, single moms couldn't adopt. So I did become their legal guardian. And we just one fine day went and got the girls home. And since then, they've been with us. Now, both of them are married. Both of them have their own kids. And it's just such a beautiful experience. And I love a house full. And that's what they do. They fill up my heart and they fill up my house.
Protesters in Louisville and supporters of the Black Lives Matter movement have been demanding justice for Breonna Taylor for more than 6 months. Taylor, aged 26, was killed in front of her armed boyfriend in March at her Louisville apartment when former police officer Hankinson and his 2 colleagues forced their way in with a no-knock warrant. Today, the Kentucky grand jury indicted former Louisville police officer Hankinson, one of the 3 police officers involved in the night Breonna Taylor was killed. 2 white officers who also fired into the apartment of Breonna Taylor faced no charges for her death because their use of force was justified by the grand jury. Mayor of Louisville has imposed a 72-hour curfew amidst the growing tension, demonstrations, and demands for an end to systemic racism and oppression. Bringing perspective on racial justice and systemic racism and the ongoing Black Lives Matter movement, we spoke with Senator Luis Sepúlveda from District 32nd in the New York State Senate. He's also running for re-elections in the upcoming November elections. Here is Senator Sepúlveda. Senator, if I was to ask you what is needed for the Democratic Party to win right now, what would you say?
A larger percentage of Latino voters and a high turnout of African-American women, because in many elections, African-American women tend to carry our Democratic candidates forward. So if we can lower the rate of support for Trump, keep the focus on COVID, on our economy, which he wants to praise so much, but really talk about how disastrous it's been. We talk about a lot of the issues that impact poor Black and brown and immigrant communities. We'll get the support that he needs. You keep that focus on him and the incompetence of COVID, and we should be able to carry the day on election day.
You know, this race war that's happening in the nation, Senator, conversations on systemic oppression and systemic racism as well, how important of a role will that play in these elections? And I would also like to get your personal comments on what is happening in the nation since the death of George Floyd and your take on what needs to be done to make a true change on this.
It's a very complicated, it's so complicated to really pinpoint here or there what they are. Look, the issue with Mr. Floyd and the explosion that came as a result of that was because of years of, not all, but a credible amount of police officers and law enforcement agencies that tend to treat Black and brown people differently. I have known because I have experienced myself. I know, I've seen it. I've stopped police officers from harassing young men in my community. So when you have that and you couple that with low unemployment, a lot of medical issues, the social ills that affect poor communities, it was an explosion.
Yeah.
The problem is that law enforcement and those that support them have grown up, we've all grown up with a mentality that police officers can do no wrong. And we have allowed, through the collective bargaining agreement, for police officers to create ways to insulate themselves from bad behavior. And that is changing as a result of Mr. Floyd's death. It has to change. No matter what you're hearing in attempts by, for example, the Police Benevolent Association, the people, those that are social activists, are not going to stop pushing for progressive policies that level the playing field and make sure the police officers that misbehave, police officers that break the law, pay the price.
Right.
And the sad part is that I know many police officers, and the majority of them are hardworking people that protect the community and want to go home. But that portion, that significant portion of those that don't do the right thing, are giving those that do a bad name and are making it more difficult to reach a point where we can come together and create policies that can ease some of this tension. Patrick Lynch, I think, does the greatest disservice to the city of New York in terms of police and civilian relationships. He's a fearmonger, and that doesn't help. The head of the sergeant's unit is a racist, fearmonger. Their impulse to nominate Trump is not going to help police relations here. And I know that, a significant number of Black and Latino members of the police force were not happy with that endorsement. So we're going to change. We're going to stay on course. You have elected officials, especially younger elected officials, who came from the activist world, who are going to continue to push for policies that change the level playing field. So, you have a good mix of a lot of things that will ensure that all of these efforts go for naught. And then we also have to guard against people that are agitating from the outside.
Right.
Groups that are from white supremacist groups that are coming into these rallies and breaking windows and breaking into cars and throwing projectiles and starting fights, to make sure that they don't become the talk or the piece on the radio, on the news, the story on the news. That doesn't become this fight, this breaking in, because you have these people, these agitators that are infiltrating inside of the movement to make them look bad. So we always profess peace. We can get this done with peace. The police have to respect protesters that are protesting peaceably. And we have to be vigilant to make sure that continues.
Yet again, I thank you for all of your time, especially stressing voting awareness is so important. I would love for you to give one last message to our audience.
Census 2020. We have to get money into our communities. If COVID has demonstrated anything, is the importance of federal dollars into our district. And we have to increase federal representation in Congress. In the last census, we lost 2 congressional districts. In this census, we probably may lose 2 more at the current rate. So we will have less Congress people to fight for us in Congress. And if you don't do it, then if you have, for example, a child who was just born or a couple years old, then what you're saying is, I don't want my child to have the maximal education because I'm not doing the census that will give us more federal dollars for our schools. So census and vote.
Yeah.
Vote, vote.
And welcome back. This is Vision of Asia, the South Asian news segment, and I am Aditi Lamba. Christopher Nolan's latest action-packed thriller Tenet has hit more than $250 million globally, despite the pandemic shuttering movie theaters all across. The plot of the movie follows a secret agent as he manipulates the flow of time to prevent World War III, and has received great reviews and appreciation for its production value, visuals, and storyline. The blockbuster 2020 film stars John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Indian actress Dimple Kapadia, and British South Asian actor Himesh Patel. We caught up with British actor Himesh Patel on Tenet and its significance for him. The very candid actor reflected upon his journey in the industry and also provided his take on South Asians breaking barriers in the global film industry. Himesh Patel, welcome to ITV Gold. I hope you're doing well today.
Thank you, I'm doing great.
Yes, of course, we have you today to discuss Christopher Nolan's newly released movie, Tenet, and your amazing role in it. So just starting off this interview, I have to ask you, for the audience that may not know about Tenet and your role in it, could you just give us a brief insight into it? And also, this movie is releasing during the pandemic. How has that experience been for you?
Yeah, so in terms of the movie, it's kind of a spy thriller. It centers on a character played by John David Washington, and he goes on a mission, a very mysterious mission, and my character kind of helps him on a couple of those missions along the way. So yes, it's a very exciting, unique action thriller. I don't think anyone's really ever seen anything like it before. Yeah, I think that's what makes it kind of an exciting release at any time, but of course during the pandemic especially, we've been struggling. We continue to struggle with it, but the opportunity has arisen for people to go to the cinema safely as and when they can, and for this to be the movie that kind of brings them back into that experience is really special, and it's a special film.
Wow, that is beautiful. And the movie globally has already made $250 million. How was it, being in this movie for you? And when you look at your journey across, going from a movie such as Yesterday to a movie such as Tenet, how different was that experience for you? What did you really have to work on with this movie?
Yeah, I mean, they were very different experiences in a lot of ways, different genres, obviously different filmmakers. And so for me, it was a whole new experience involving all practical effects. I mean, one of the special things about working with a filmmaker like Christopher Nolan, he does all of his effects in camera. There's no CGI afterwards, which is hard for people to believe when they see some of the stuff that they'll see when they go and watch this movie. But I can promise you it's all done in camera. So when I'm, driving a speedboat or I'm working on an actual 747 plane, that's real. We actually had that stuff to play with. So it was a pretty awe-inspiring experience to get to set every day and not have to pretend with anything, really, just to kind of, it's all there. You just have to believe it.
You are a South Asian, and I know you're really proud of your culture as well. And there is another South Asian actress in the movie as well, Dimple Kapadia, a very known veteran Indian actress. When you have two South Asians in a film like Tenet, what kind of a message do you think it sends across for the community and the diaspora? And you have had an amazing journey in the industry. Do you think South Asians are finally finding their space and place in the industry?
Yeah, I think, when you've got characters like my character and an actress of Dimple Kapadia's stature, within her own industry and now internationally as well, it sends a message that that we do belong in these kind of stories. Growing up, that was rare. If I were to go and watch a movie like this growing up, I wouldn't see myself in it. As much as I'd love these movies, I'd be thrilled by them, I wouldn't necessarily see myself in them. And if I did, the quality of the role probably wasn't great, in terms of the stereotyping of it. So to now be part of a new era in that sort of way is really thrilling. It's a privilege. It's something that I don't take for granted. It's something that I want to continue working on, in terms of from my position within the industry, to make sure that things do keep progressing. I think there has been progression in terms of representation. And I think there is, now more than ever, people are having the freedom to tell the kind of stories they want to tell. There's more and more avenues to tell those sorts of stories. But I think if we kind of relax too much and go, oh, we did it, it's all sorted, I think that's when, problems arise again. It's about constantly interrogating those things that we've spent years kind of dismantling.
What's coming up next for you? What's inspiring you?
What's coming up next for me? I started work at the beginning of the year on a series called Station 11, which is an HBO series based on a book. So I look forward to getting back to work on that at some point in the future, whenever it's safe to do so, really. So yeah, that's kind of what's next for me. Yeah.
Well, this wraps up our show for the night. Remember to send us your suggestions and get your voices and organizations on our show. Email us on events@itvgold.com or follow us on Facebook at itvgold. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch many of our popular shows for free. Thank you for joining us tonight from Queens, New York. This is Vision of Asia, and I am Aditi Lamba. Take care and be well.